as somebody who is now off the roof, can you talk briefly about your experience of, your first 30 years, line 3, and then your on the roof phase, and kind of what that was like for you, especially as you look back?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. I was just talking with someone about this morning, and it was not in human design language, but in my mind, I was translating it and going, wow, this is the 3 phases of being a 6th line, because I talked about spending so much of my life. We were talking about the difference between fitting in and belonging. And fitting in is what I was trying to do in the first 30 years. I said I was that square peg trying to just cram myself into that round hole. And my corners were so worn off. And then I spent the next however many years, I told him, trying to let my corners come back. Right. So I feel like the first 30 years, that was when I was like trying to live my best life, but just killing myself doing it. As a projector, I just did not have the energy. I mean, I was trying to work. I have all the motors except the sacral. So I was just using them, using all my emotions, using all my willpower, the root pressure, everything to just be my best self. And I just was fried. So then I spent the next 30 years or 29 years trying to get those corners back on that square peg and really remembering who I was and integrating all those things in a way that looked like moving to the Atlanta suburbs, raising a daughter, being a stay-at-home mom for a while, PTA vice president, all these little nice things, got a part-time job that really, in hindsight, was the one part of me that really was getting my corners back to who I really am. So I won't say that coming off the roof was easy. So people who think that the coming down the roof is like, oh, you come off, I feel like I fell off the roof and landed on my head. Okay. And it's been, and everybody, like, they make it sound like, oh, you're such this role model, but you are. But it's not, it's because people look at you and go, wow, you're really authentic. You're being real about all the things about you that are screwed up. So it's not like all of a sudden you have it all figured out. It's that people look at your resiliency, the way you can take the lessons you've learned. And I no longer try to put my square self into those round holes. I just move away. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely does. I mean, I think that's worthwhile. It's more like I would almost call it like an authentic role model, right? Sort of like, hey, I've been through the muck, I've been through it, and I'm still standing. And hey, if I'm still standing, you can still be standing, right? And everything's great and everything's wonderful, and I'm perfectly designed for who I am and what I came here to be, and to me, that's how I see it when I hear you speak.
Yeah. And I feel like I've always been somebody who relates younger than I am. So maybe it took me longer, like maybe some of the things other people are figuring out on the roof, I had to be off the roof before I really figured it out. And I didn't find human design until I was well off the roof. So, and already coming near, I just went through my second Saturn, or I'm still going through my second Saturn return, which, let me tell you, pay attention to your Saturn gates. You think they hit you hard when you're 29. Well, if you haven't learned those lessons and you're 58, yeah, you're definitely going to feel those. So we don't talk about that nearly as much as we do the Chiron return and coming off the roof. But, that's the next one then that gets you.
Okay, so I didn't really expect the line 6 panel to be like the cautionary tale panel, but it's probably what this is turning out to be. So that's interesting. I would love to, Kathy, I'd love to elaborate a little bit more about that. Like how is that actually showing up for you? Like what do you know your Saturn gates off the top of your head? And like,
yes.
Can you speak to that? Yeah.
Yes, both my Saturn gates and my conscious moon are in gate 13.
Okay, so gate 13 for people is the I guess it's called the prodigal. I'm trying to think off the top of my head, but it's the listening gate. So like people are telling you their secrets and their stories, right? And so
it's really about reframing their stories and reframing my own story. And I could not do that if I had not had all the lessons that I learned in my 29 years of third line living, right? So it's by doing that, and then it's by living those years on the roof where I watched everybody else who hadn't had all those experiences too. That's a lot of it. I watch a lot of people who've had safe lives, and I feel kind of a little sad for them, you know? And it's not just the excitement of whatever, it's the resiliency that you get from living through these things that really gives you a kind of wisdom and a trust that, hey, it's going to be okay. And these kinds of things are what really give us perspective. It makes me a much more compassionate person. I don't have a sense of separateness from people who have really screwed up, because I've screwed up pretty bad. And I think my life is pretty fantastic. And I think I'm a pretty good person. So it gives you a sense of resiliency. And I think the hardest thing for sixth line, when people find it early, my niece is a sixth line and she's 26, I think now. But when she found out she was a 6-2, she was only like 23. She's like, I have to wait until I'm 50 to get my life together. She was literally almost crying about it. And it was like, no, you're meant to just embrace all these things as you learning all the things that are going to, I still didn't really buy it for her, but it helped, cause it really is, it's a gift. It's a gift to know that that's what you're supposed to be doing. For me, it looked like, all these goofed, I got married at 19 and divorced at 22. And I got married because it was what I was supposed to do. And someone asked me, I was recognized. I was invited. I didn't use my emotional authority and wait until I had clarity. I was just like, wow, somebody wants to marry me. That projector of like, oh, I'm, so yeah, there's a lot of things in there. And then that time, once I became single, those 22 to 29, when I met my husband now, those years in there that was like poster child for third line living. So I did all the things. Not all of them good.
No,
most of them not good, right?
You'd be interested to re-listen to the first part of this panel once that gets once the live is over on Facebook, because Tomas was talking about his amazing, like basically the fact that he's amazed he's alive right after his line 3 life, and
right?
like, holy crap. So yeah, absolutely. And you know what, you said a couple of things which, like, I actually scribbled on my little Post-its here. Fitting in versus belonging.
Okay.
And I really like that. And I think that, that's beyond sixth line to me. That's like, anybody who is either human design, right? Because human design is really sort of that lesson that we're all unique and we're all part of the cosmic puzzle. So it is really about that belonging versus fitting in. Fitting in, the implication is I need to be like somebody else, right? I need to match other people. I need to, be in sync with them like that. But belonging is like, I have this unique place and I'm still part of this beautiful whole. And without me, the beautiful whole would be imperfect, right? Like there'd be something missing.
Yes. And that was something that came from Brene Brown. I'm sorry. She has this great book called Atlas of the Heart that is all about different emotions. And that's where she talks about that. And she actually has a series right now on HBO Max about the same thing. So that's really worth looking into it. I'm a big fan of that. But yeah, that whole like belonging, to me, that really speaks to the projector wound, right? Spend your whole life just trying to fit in so that somebody will notice you. Look at me, look at me, look at me, and the belonging is when you get somewhere and you're like, these are my people. That's how I felt when I went to my first human design in-person event. I was like, oh, so these are my people.